Four Knights of the Apocalypse episode 8 is out, and honestly, great episode. I really enjoyed it. Episode 1 is still my favorite overall, but I think they handled episode 8 a lot better than how episode 7 went out. The animation was a lot more consistent. We had a lot more impact. We had some anime-only scenes that got me very excited, and it showed that they knew what the people wanted to see. Plus, the pacing was a lot better this episode. While I did say that last episode felt too fast, mainly because two major things happened in the exact same episode, here it felt a lot more focused, and it honestly did not feel too fast or too slow. It just felt like a perfect pacing. And I continue to have faith in this anime adaptation because slowly but surely we're getting up to the real meat of what this season is going to be. But before I get into what happened in this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really does help, and ensures you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel. I'm making these Four Knights reviews weekly alongside doing the manga, and those are doing very well as well. Now with that out of the way, let's get right into this episode. So this episode starts off from last week with Percival basically telling Ironside that his power is hope, and Ironside just scoffing at the fact that that is his power. But the real thing I want to state is that after the intro, we get to see all these chaos beasts, these chaotic dead, basically wreaking havoc in the town until all of a sudden they start getting taken out one by one in single blows, as someone in silhouette continues to walk forward, take out knives, tossing them around and using some light-based slash attack from what we can tell to completely eviscerate this demonic dead army. And the familiar that Ironside had controlling all of them is just in shock and just in sheer desperation as to what the heck is going on, because they're being taken out very easily. And then I honestly like the vibes. This is like just some secret Avenger or something like that, going across town, taking out all these monsters without even revealing themselves. It's the same person we saw from last week, jumping from roof to roof, and as a manga reader, I know who this character is. And the thing is, this is all anime original scenes with this character in silhouette. Obviously, you'll kind of have a strong idea as to who this person is if you watch the Grudge of Edinburgh movies, or if you've just seen images of the manga. Either way, this was something we didn't get in the manga, seeing this character take out all this chaotic dead. We just saw like brief glimpses, but never anything about their actual character design. This plays up the mystery, but also giving you an idea of who this character is. And I just like how this character is just taking out one giant problem all on their own. And as a manga fan, seeing everything put into that sequence, as well as certain aspects that we don't find out till later, is just so rewarding. And it'll give anime onlys a lot of speculating to go off of, though it makes the mystery of who this character is a bit less mysterious. Either way, we cut back to Ironside as he sees his familiar is basically dead. All of the chaotic creatures are being destroyed. He throws down his sword after Percival saying, "It's done, you lost." And Ironside is being like, well, I lost. You're right. And after everything that's happened, I'm probably going to be executed for failing this mission, and I've committed a lot of crime. Percival, my son, come down so I can see you face to face before my life is forfeit. And Percival obviously is buying this. He is a pure-hearted cinnamon roll. Of course he wants to believe that maybe his father didn't really mean to kill his grandfather of his own free will and just wants to just connect with his son. But An just tells Percival, don't fall for this. He is lying out of his teeth. He is enveloped in a black fog, obviously symbolizing the lies and deceit that An sees with their magic ability, as all Ironside wants to do is kill Percival right here, right now. And after, his plan is essentially foiled, the anger in Ironside's voice is just impeccable. Props to Ironside's voice actor, really showcasing the menace of this character. Ironside begins to launch a barrage of his cross-slash attacks towards Percival and the gang, who are being lifted in the air by Percival's magic aura. And so Percival begins to fly around, dodging this barrage of attacks to even try and not get his friends hurt and try not to get dealt with a massive blow. Essentially, the sequence boils down to Percival and the gang basically trying to avoid and weaving through Ironside's just sheer onslaught of attacks in order to try and land a blow on him. And Percival does remember what Sin told him, that Ironside is most likely 10 times stronger than he thinks he is. And thus, Percival realizes that he can't really take on Ironside in an actual fight. And so they end up coming with a plan in order to essentially win the fight without really needing to beat Ironside. So Percival manages to just make a beeline straight for Ironside and gets ready to launch an attack. Ironside is obviously getting prepared to hit Percival, but Donnie actually uses his magic ability to lift the coffin of eternal darkness higher into the air. That way Percival just goes away from Ironside just barely and does an uppercut attack to slash the coffin of eternal darkness. And this sequence, the animation was definitely a lot better than the previous episodes, with the fluidity of how Percival just flying and weaving through the air, and this sequence where Percival flies up and then begins to slash the coffin. After this slash, the coffin shatters apart into all its different pieces, and Donnie manages to get the iconic dragon handle, which obviously we all know belonged to Meliodas in Seven Deadly Sins for the first season. But the coffin wasn't the only thing that was slashed by Percival, as Percival also manages to slice Ironside's helmet clean in two, revealing his face. And I always liked Ironside's actual design. I wasn't the biggest fan of his own armor. It looks too goofy looking with the helmet, but either way, the certain aspects with the face visor looks honestly intimidating. The top part I just didn't like, but I like his actual design, and he does look a lot like Percival's grandfather Vargas. But Ironside literally is like, so what? You stopped me for now. Doesn't matter. I could always just kill you, grab the piece, and start again. There are more humans in Britannia that I could use as sacrifices for the coffin. All you gotta do is kill you guys and start again. Which is an ample and actually very logical point, because, yeah, Ironside can just try this again if he just gets the piece back. It was fairly obvious they weren't able to beat him in this fight anyway. They just essentially won the main fight of just stopping the actual ritual from killing an entire town. Ironside begins to try and launch another volley of attacks, but another Chaos Knight shows up and stops him. His name is Mort. If you're a manga fan, if you're reading the manga Four Knights of the Apocalypse, you know the sheer amount of visceral hatred we have towards this character. Us manga fans and anime fans, eventually you'll get to understand why we dislike this character. Anyway, it goes on to tell Ironside that it's best for them to retreat right now, because all the chaotic dead that Ironside summoned were defeated. And basically, he says that Ironside more or less summoned mid to high level undead, and state that the only people that could take him out are members of the legendary Seven Deadly Sins, or those about as powerful as the Sins. And I just like how this series treats the Seven Deadly Sins as the legends that they are, the heroes of the world that essentially stopped the Holy War, took out two gods. They are living legends in this world, and it makes sense why they would be revered and talked about all around the land. And this series treats its previous characters, previous main cast, right in terms of just the sheer sense of presence that these characters still have and their impact on the entire world as a whole. It's after this that Mortlich convinces Ironside that it's best for them to retreat right now, and so they leave. Percival lands on the ground, and in the brief instance, they all have a sigh of relief, and the whole group collapses from the sheer stress and exhaustion of this entire situation, as they just barely managed to get out of this with their lives. Even on brings up the fact that they were still no match against Ironside to begin with, and if it wasn't for Percival unlocking his magic, they would all be dead right now. Now, this is something that the anime didn't do, and I feel like I'm split on this. In the manga, when Percival gained his magic ability, that it was Hope, and they fought against Ironside weaving around, we had a narrator telling us how Percival got stronger with the boost that his friends gave them through his belief, but that wasn't enough to even do anything against Ironside. All they could do was run away. Now, this was told visually through this actual confrontation, which I like, but at the same time, there will still be people who watch this for the first time and think, oh, Percival's got the power of friendship, he's gonna take this guy down no matter what. Oh, it doesn't make sense that he has this power and he wasn't able to win. It makes sense. It was a power boost from his friends, but it wasn't enough to really do anything against Ironside outside of give him the advantage to actually survive and stop the coffin. Anyway, Anne reunites with her father as they have a sigh of relief that they're both okay. Then Sin shows up and is like, huh, so the fight's over, I take it. And I just like how everyone's just been asking Sin, who the heck did you call to take care of those monsters? And Sin's like, oh, it was just my forest friends. And I like how Nazians and Don are like, yeah, we don't really buy that, but Percival just buys it instantly. God bless his soul. And they just straight up don't believe him. They know he's hiding something, but they're just not prying in this instance right now, because that's kind of how Sin works. Now, as the tension fully leaves, Percival says he's got to go take a dump, and proceeds to run away. But we then cut to Percival just sitting on a piece of a broken building, thinking about Ironside and how he looks just like his grandfather as he begins to cry in solitude. Now in comes one of my favorite sequences of this episode. We then transition to Camelot, and we see Arthur for the first time in this series. And I like how they're drawing and depicting Arthur. He has an air of like, I want to say menace, more like command and power over his knights. Ironside saying how much he's failed him, and Arthur is really taking the Four Knights too seriously. He's like, hey, if you see him next time, tell him if you want to take on Arthur Pendragon, you're more than welcome to. Not to mention Merlin is standing by Arthur's side as she left with Arthur at the end of Seven Deadly Sins, and now she is still with Arthur, which makes us wonder, is she the Sin's enemy now? What is going on with Merlin? Why is she helping Arthur doing all these heinous things? He then goes on to explain how this was their best chance to take out Leonis without much issue, and now things are going to be a lot more difficult. Literally basically confirming that they're going to use the coffin on Leonis, perhaps on the Sins themselves, so they'd have less of an issue essentially taking over Britannia. And as Ironside saying, I take full responsibility for this failure. I will take whatever punishment you deem fit. And I like how they draw Arthur being all menacing, being like, I like that side of you, Ironside. As then a bunch of chaos creatures just manifest out of nowhere, hold Ironside up, grab him, and stab him through the chest with these horrific tentacle images, as he's also seemingly being eaten alive by these chaos creatures, as Arthur is just staring down at Ironside with his chaos eyes, black and purple, as he begins to monologue. And explain how over the last 16 years, even before the Holy War, humans were always caught in the scuffles and basic warrings of all the other clans in the world, the giants, fairies, demons, and goddesses, and they suffered a lot of losses. And so he wanted to create Camelot, an eternal kingdom, where all these negative things would not happen to humans. A world for humans and humans alone. And I like how during this instance, we have this like old horror movie filter over Arthur as he is monologue. It showcases that he is definitely a threat and he should not be taken too lightly. He is the king of chaos after all, and he's basically got the powers of a god and basically can turn things into basic horror images that will haunt your nightmares. The manga obviously had more detail for the scene with Ironside being seemingly being ripped apart and killed, but I like the anime's version of it also. It does air a bit of menace, and the actual music choice used in the scene, honestly, I think it's perfect. Not to mention Arthur's voice actor, killing it. Love her. But Arthur goes on to say that he knows Ironside benefits from this as well, and he won't really like any more careless mistakes. So he'll give him another chance, showcasing that he does trust Ironside and values Ironside more than others believe he does. And so, forcefully ripping out all those tentacle creatures from Ironside, Ironside is seemingly unharmed and even fully healed from the poison and numbness that Nazianz placed into him. And just like that, Arthur goes from menacing Monster King to jovial Kid King in an instance, just laughing and being like, well, how's that feel? I took out all the numbness and poison from your bloodstream. You should be good as new right now. Ironside begins to try and tell Arthur that he won't let this chance pass away, and he'll go and take out Percival on his own right now. But Arthur's just like, nah man, you're good. I don't need you for this right now. I have something even more important for you to do, as Arthur begins to basically say how Leonis has had a step up on Camelot throughout this entire, like, pseudo-shadow war in a sense, because of the vision, which, if you don't remember from Seven Deadly Sins, the former King Bartra, who is Elizabeth's adoptive father, and the previous King Leonis, had the ability called vision. Whenever he would dream, he would get these vague premonitions of the future. And it will basically always be told in like a riddle or a prophecy, essentially. And by deciphering that, you'd be able to tell how the future will unfold. It's how they foresaw the sins coming together and how they foresaw the Ten Commandments basically being broken free. And now this power of vision is being used to help Leonis essentially hold the tides of war against Camelot. And so Iron's like, do you want me to steal the power of vision? Do you want me to take it away? But Iron's like, no, I got something just as not more important. I want you to go find my bride. This is going to be important later down the road, and this is brought back up later on in the season. Manga fans know what's going on. All I have to say, keep this in mind right now. But we cut away from Arthur as we're back with Percival's group in Sistana, as they're talking to Ann's dad and being like, sorry about the destruction, Ironside really did a number on this place, but Ann's dad is just saying, look, houses can be rebuilt, I'm just glad that the people are safe, and can only imagine the sheer amount of devastation that would have occurred if Ironside was left by himself. And so he thanks Percival and the gang for basically saving the day. And then An shows up in a brand new outfit and new haircut, basically declaring to her father that she knows that she's weak and inexperienced, but she wants to grow stronger and be a holy knight like her mother. And her father's like, look, I don't want you to go venturing out on your own. And obviously An's was expecting him to basically saying like not wanting her to go out at all, but with that choice of words, she's like, wait, alone? As then Percival jumps down, is like, why don't you come and join us on our journey? And this is essentially the completion of Team Percival. I like this group of characters throughout the manga, and I just like their interaction. Seeing this group being newly formed and having this friendship beginning to form is something that I find very wholesome and enjoyable when it comes to Four Knights. And I don't know, I just like the wholesomeness of this group. An has a tearful goodbye with her father as the group begin to venture off into the distance to head towards Leonis. Now, key piece of information I wanted to say this is that An's mother and Ironside used to be holy knights that served alongside Arthur a long time ago. And obviously, in that image, we saw Pelgard there, we saw Vargas there, and in the back, we see someone, if you've seen Seven Deadly Sins, and that would be Nanashi. So, it's very obvious that they were all holy knights and all friends in the past, but something happened, splintered them, and also An's mother passed away some years ago. So, obviously, things have changed in the past, but this is a very important piece of information and showcases how things and the connections with Arthur and Camelot are, as another layer of personal stakes to an extent. But anyway, the episode ends. We get a post-credit scene where everyone's off on their journey and Percival and Sin are talking about just basically his destiny and facing his father, and Sin just telling him, forget all that, push past it, forge your own path. And everyone goes off on their journey to go towards their next destination. And that's the episode. I liked it. Like I said at the start, very well paced, the animation was a lot better. I liked the voice acting, the music choices were always great, and it had a nice sense of impact with a lot of the big moments in this episode. I liked Percival's whole thing where he just charged up and took out the coffin and revealed Ironside's face. But the Arthur section was definitely one of my favorites because I just like seeing Arthur be a very imposing and evil-looking character, and then jumping to a lackadaisical, goofy king when he addresses his knights in a way where he's like, whatever, well, it's cool, man. Do what you gotta do. Also, I got a job for you. It's very chaotic, I guess, if you want to say it. And I get that it sounds like a pun. But I just like how Arthur is portrayed in this series, and I look forward to seeing more of it in the future. And we also got 4 more episodes left in this first core. And we got maybe 2 more mini arcs before we reach into the second half, where it'll be like the big important stuff that'll really showcase what Four Knights is all about. But that's all I got here today. I know this was a longer review than normal, but I had a lot to talk about and a lot to gush over. But what did you guys think? Did you enjoy the episode? Are you looking forward to more Four Knights of the Apocalypse? And what do you think is going to happen next in the anime? And how do you think things are going to end off this season? Let me know in the comment section down below. And if you haven't already, don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. It helps and ensures you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel. And with all that said and done, I hope you all have an awesome day.